Welcome to 35-Minute Frankenstein. My name is Thomas. I'm your host. This is me. I like to walk around the text and point at things. Why should you watch this video? Who is it for? Well, it's for you. It's exactly for you if you want to learn a ton about Frankenstein. If you want to learn a ton about this book right here, written by Mary Shelley in 1818, this book is for you. If you want to learn a lot about her life, because this is really an introductory video here. We're going to go very deep into these years between 18 and 20. This hyphen right here is doing a lot of heavy lifting. She had some wild experiences during this years. She had such wild experiences that I had to draw not just her, but her, what should we say? The man that she left her parents to go live with and then marry. It's like a tragic story. It's a wild story. It's a surprising story. It's a story that you don't want to miss. And so that's going to be first. And then we're going to learn a lot of vocabulary because we do reading here. This is reading Renaissance. You know, we read deeply and we read carefully and we take our time with things, you know. So the idea is like 35 minutes of your time. How much can we possibly learn with that 35 minutes? How many backflips can I do trying to help you see things from really deep perspectives and do actual learning on YouTube is always the experiment. With a little more detail here, what are we going to do? What are we doing? We're going to get romantic. Let's get rid of these things. We're getting romantic is the subtitle for this video. Romantic is kind of like emo, you know, the emo people. We love the emo people, the people that wear black. The romantics were like the early 19th century version of that. They wore black. They were really into exploring their feelings. In fact, they thought that their feelings were like the most real expression of reality. And so they explored their feelings. They wrote poetry about their feelings. And we're going to talk about them and a specific group of them and the experience that they had with a volcano. That I have a picture of the volcano. You're going to see the volcano. You're going to see it very soon. Stick with me. That's all part of the IRL story. We're going to move around Europe. We're going to escape from our parents in a surprising way. We're going to skip this part, this timeline's like that was part of my original plan, but like we're not going to have time for that. We're going to do a vocabulary workshop where we're going to learn 70 words that we need because we got some serious words here. Appendage, hideous, that's not so bad, but appendage, singular used probably in a way you've never heard before. Ladder is like, we should probably be ready for ladder. Look at this pointing. Love the pointing. We're going to read the author's introduction. We're going to read the preface. And then we're going to close with a personal fun fact from me about my life that has to do with death. All those things are true. It is personal. It is fun. And it is a fact. And it's about death. And that's just to celebrate those romantics. And because, man, they were really interested in a couple different things. And one of them was definitely death. So thanks for jumping on board. And let's get into the IRL story of the writing of Frankenstein. Okay. So first of all, this young girl, well, let's get her out here, right? Let's bring her out. Here she is, Mary Godwin Shelley, a young girl indeed. And she had two parents, as she mentioned, and they were both famous. As she mentioned, we have Mary Wollstonecraft right here and William Godwin right here. And they were both famous writers and philosophers. Mary Wollstonecraft, you'll notice here, she's a little bit wild. She's a little bit abstract looking. It's because her ideas were quite abstract. She was maybe the first feminist writer. And so she had this radical idea that women should be treated with equality as far as men were concerned. And her life was fascinating and very interesting. It had a lot of ups and downs. Her husband was an anarchist. So her husband believed in no government, no marriage. Marriage is slavery. And people should just follow love wherever it takes them. And if you're, marriage should last as long as love lasts. And if you don't really love the person anymore, there's no reason to be together. So divorce should be like no problem. And taxes are theft and all kinds of like really radical ideas. So her parents are super radicals. And here she is, which is totally fine. Except that things got a little bit complicated because then this dude came along and his name is, you notice that her name is Mary Godwin, not Mary Shelley. You notice that this dude came along. His name, actually, I'm going to change scene here. We're going to change scene because we need more space because we're going to start to move all over Europe. So we have Mom, Dad, and Shelley, except for, unfortunately, Mom died 11 days after Shelley was born. So she's out of the picture. And Dad remarried. And then Shelley got herself a sister that was her same age. I'm really sorry about how Claire looks here. And I think I need to apologize to her personally. Claire, I'm sorry. I feel like you're more attractive than this. The dress got a little out of hand, and I don't think that your body looked like that. I'm also sorry what happened to your dress, Mary. And I might not be that great of an artist, but you were about the same age. And here you are at 16 years old. Your dad is a very famous teacher. He teaches that marriage is not really a thing. And I don't know if you can tell where this is going, but then this dude enters the scene. And this is now not this dude, different dude. This handsome devil enters the scene, and he is going to study philosophy and other things. He's a poet. He's a very well-known poet. And I like to call him a piece of work because he was a piece of work. And his name is Percy B. Shelley. And wow, just wait to see what he does. Because he's learning from William Godwin here about how marriage doesn't exist. And he's also married, and his wife is lovely. And I actually did a good job drawing her, and she does actually look lovely, and she looks a little sad and lovely, because he has went off and left her somewhat to go study philosophy with this great philosophy teacher. And while he's studying philosophy, he kind of gets interested over here in these two 16-year-old girls. And he's studying philosophy and learning that marriage is not really a thing. And he kind of leaves his wife here. And then he takes these two girls and they go to Paris together. And they took Claire with really because she could speak French really well. But he was really interested in Mary. In fact, they were soulmates, they discovered. And that is the story here. And so that's why Mary later becomes Mary Shelley. But they're living in Paris. And then she turns 16, 17, they're living in Paris, and then they go back, and then she has a baby, but she loses it right away, and that's sad. And then it's also sad that Harriet decides that she's going to do something really sad because she goes, this is water here, and then I need one more thing. One moment. These are rocks. And this is a little bit later. It's not quite on the time limit, but she fills her pockets with rocks and she goes under the water. And then we lose her. And it's somewhat ironic because Percy is going to also go under the water later, but much later. And so then we lose her, and that's sad. But then they're married later, and it's very sad. But importantly for the story, when she loses that first baby, she says this long before Frankenstein is born. She says, "Dream that my little baby had come to life again, that it had been cold and came to life." And so these are the very real human experiences that these very flawed people experience to the depths of experience. And then they write about them, and they write poetry about them, and they have like these very rich human experiences. And that's kind of like the journey of the Romantics. And it's not over yet because the volcano is about to go off. So in 1815, we have the volcano, and these people are still together. I have to remove this from the map. And we're going to remove William Godwin from the map because nobody cares what he thinks at all. And we're also going to change our scenery because we are going to Lake Geneva, and the volcano goes off That's like 7,000 miles away, but like you can still go there. The volcano is still there, but like that's quite an old volcano, and that really impacted things because it changed the weather everywhere, and it changed the weather in Europe. And so now these people are together, and we're going to add a couple other characters that are very goofy. So Claire has a little bit of a thing going with Lord Byron, who is from England, but he is a little bit on the run because he had kind of a thing going with his half sister or maybe sister, and that was frowned upon. So we had these two couples, and they decide to go to Lake Geneva, where Lord Byron has rented this place right here. And it's a very, very nice place to write stories. And so that is what they're going to do, is they're going to hang out, write poetry, write stories, and really, really get into the vibes. And for getting into the vibes, they have someone that's going to help them. Oh, and then also to get into the vibes, they've got this is going on. So because of over here, much farther away, they have the volcano. This is going on. These are clouds. It's super, super bad weather with all kinds of storms all the time, with like so much lightning everywhere. And they also, when they go to Lake Geneva, they also bring with them Dr. Polidori, who is, and this is not how you should live their life, he is also their drug dealer. He is their laudanum guy, which at this time was like just something that everybody did, something that you had, especially in their social class. But it was opium. It was a real relaxer that they would take for a toothache. They would take it if they weren't feeling so great, if their tum-tum was a little upset, or if they just wanted to get deep into the reverie and really feel the vibes real hard. They would take a little bit of that. And this is the guy that would get them going with it. And that's Dr. Polidori, and he was with them too. So when we read the rest of the authors, so now she's going to tell a little bit of this story, but she's going to leave many of the things that I just mentioned out. Hopefully you'll have a little bit of context for what's going on. So now we're going to have to get rid of all of our scene here, and we will, I'll meet you right back in the text. So now we have our text in front of us. And before we get into our text, we're going to do our vocabulary work. So depending on how much work you want to do, you can look at these words. You could skip ahead in the video to the reading part, but you could also copy out all these definitions. They're all in order. They're all underlined in the text I'm about to read. So you could skip ahead in the video and see the words. You could copy these definitions into the text if you're like that. They will all be linked in the description of the video, PDFs, and you can do that quickly. I'm also going to read all of these words aloud shortly. Maybe talk a little bit about how they fit into the text. But doing this helps you. It's really helpful because you can remember these words in order, in context, and a lot of them will stick, maybe forever. Account. An account is a story. To dilate is to open something. It's a verb. Verbs are important. We pay special attention to verbs. Hideous. Oh, it's it's ugly. Appendage is something that sticks out. Singular, and the context that it's used in this writing means strange. The latter is like the last thing that was mentioned. Picturesque. Look at the word picture. If you want to do a picture of something, you want to make a picture of, must be picturesque. Habitual means like normal, something that I do all the time. And airy is a highest, like a high nest of something. Usually it's a place where you're very safe because you're up in the air. Unheeded is something that is ignored. Advice that's unheeded is like, oh, you didn't do it. To commune is something that you are with. It's something people talk about communing with nature. If you're with nature. Fancy is like an imagination, something that the imagination does. A fancy. Woes are pains. There's a lot of woes that these romantics go through. They go deep into their woes. A lot is something that like is part of your life. To people in this sense is a verb. It means to fill. To incite is to provoke, like to provoke a riot. To cultivate is to grow. A canto is a part of a poem. To partake is something shared together. Very important, together. Ungenial is like that man's face. Incessant means not stopping. And to bestow is like a formal gift. Will bestow upon you a large endowment. A beaver is actually a visor for like a suit of armor. It's like a slang word for a piece of armor, part of armor. To wither is to dry up. To relinquish is to give up. Uncongenial is not friendly. To ponder is to think about. Incapability is you don't have the ability to do something. Invocations, the way that she uses it, is a prayer. To mortify is to embarrass. And galvanism, in this sense, is like this is the magic that brings Frankenstein to life once we get into the novel itself. And galvanism is like the electricity that runs through the human body that makes it work. To endue is to endow. I think I forgot an N right there. To wane is something that slips away. Unbidden is without being asked. Reverie, lost in thought. This is also a drug-induced reverie, is what especially those boys, especially Dr. Polidori and Lord Byron. I didn't really tell too much of Lord Byron's story, but man, he was just a monster. In fact, later, Lord Polidori invents the vampire, and the vampire is based on Lord Byron. So like the people that were hanging out at this place, at this Villa Diodati, are like, it was quite a place. To hallow is a gorgeous word. It means to make holy. Phantasm is an illusion. To endeavor is the thing you do. Something that you are doing is your endeavor. Odious is repulsive. Transient means impermanent. Speculative, to try to figure it out. Parquet is a type of floor. To contrive is skillfully figure something out. Morrow is tomorrow. Progeny, offspring. Adjuncts are add-ons. Physiological is life, having to do with life, or like especially like the mechanism that makes life possible, especially in this context, which is 1816, 1818. To delineate is to trace or to map. Elementary is primal, like the very most basic possible causes for things. Human nature is a mystery, sublime. Human nature is like, what makes us, this is all the stuff that the romantics are into, so the definition of human nature is not mystery, but like, if you think about like what human nature is, like that's a mystery. Like that's like going deep into like, why do I do the things I do? Why is it that like, why is it like that everyone loves is eventually going to die and there's nothing that we can do about it? And that's just those types of things. To scruple is to hesitate. To innovate is to go beyond. The Iliad. So all of these are three works that are mentioned. And now we're getting into the preface, which was actually written by that one dude, PB Shelley, that guy, like that piece of work who left his wife for the 16-year-old girl, and then wrote poetry about it so he could like live to the most extreme. Yeah, that guy. To confer is to give. Exquisite means complex and complexly beautiful. By no means like in no way. Don't care. Indifferent is like, I don't care. Tendencies are like, that's just, it's a way of doing things. I have a tendency to do this. Enervating is a great word. It means it sucks the energy and joy from like some experience. Amiableness is kindness. Inference is like an inferred, but take some meaning by inferring it from like, it's not explicit. Environs means the area of. So these are the 70 words and phrases that you're going to find in this reading that we are about to dive into, I might explain a thing or two. I'll probably make the words a little bit bigger, and it'll probably take about 15 minutes to get through it. So she's going to talk about this hideous idea. This is the hideous idea, that you can take something that is dead and make it alive. The publishers of the standard novels, in selecting Frankenstein for one of their series, expressed a wish that I should furnish them with some account of the origin of the story. I am the more willing to comply because I shall give a general answer to the question so frequently asked me, how I, then a young girl, came to think of and to dilate upon so very hideous an idea. Is it true that I am very averse to bringing myself forward in print? But as my account will only appear as an appendage to a former production, and as it will be confined to such topics as have connection with my authorship alone, I can scarcely accuse myself of a personal intrusion. It is not singular that, as the daughter of two persons of distinguished literary celebrity, I should very early in life have thought of writing. As a child, I scribbled, and my favorite pastime during the hours given me for recreation was to write stories. Still, I had a dearer pleasure than this, which was the formation of castles in the air, the indulging in waking dreams, the following up trains of thought which had for their subject the formation of a succession of imaginary incidents. My dreams were at once more fantastic and agreeable than my writings. In the latter, I was a close imitator, rather doing as others had done than putting down the suggestions of my own mind. What I wrote was intended at least for one other eye, my childhood's companion and friend. But my dreams were all my own. I accounted for them to nobody. They were my refuge when annoyed, my dearest pleasure when free. And I have a huge annotation coming down here too. Romantic. My one place of refuge was my own mind, my sacred place of refuge. That's a very romantic notion. I lived principally in the country as a girl and passed a considerable time in Scotland. I made occasional visits to the more picturesque parts, but my habitual residence was on the blank and dreary northern shores of the Tay near Dundee. Blank and dreary in retrospection, I call them. They were not so to me then. They were the eyrie of freedom, a pleasant region where unheeded I could commune with creatures of my fancy. I wrote then, but in a most commonplace style. It was beneath the trees of the grounds belonging to our house, or on the bleak sides of the woodless mountains near, that my true compositions, the airy flights of my imagination, were born and fostered. I did not make myself the heroine of my tales. My life appeared to me too commonplace an affair as regarded myself. I could not figure to myself that romantic woes or wonderful events would ever be my lot. But I was not confined to my own identity, and I could not people the hours with creations far more interesting to me at that age than my own sensations. After this, my life became busier, and reality stood in place of fiction. My husband, however, at the time of the novel's writing, he was not her husband. My husband, however, was from the first very anxious that I should prove myself worthy of my parentage and enroll myself on the page of fame. He was forever inciting me to obtain literary reputation, which even on my own part I cared for then, though since I have become infinitely indifferent to it. At this time, he desired that I should write, not so much with the idea that I could produce anything worthy of notice, but that he might himself judge how far I possessed the promise of better things hereafter. Still, I did nothing. Traveling and the cares of a family occupied my time, and study, in the way of reading or improving my ideas in communication with his far more cultivated mind, was all of literary employment that engaged my attention. And here, what is she doing here? What is she doing here? Is she being funny? Is she using some irony? Is she being playfully demure? What is Shelley's masterwork and should we read it? Like, how good was this guy? I mean, was the most amazing thing he ever did running off with that guy's 2 daughters, or did he actually write something that was like amazing, But maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I think that the most amazing thing he ever did was maybe the trick he pulled on old William Godwin. In the summer of 1816, we visited Switzerland and became the neighbors of Lord Byron. At first, we spent our pleasant hours on the lake or wandering on its shores, and Lord Byron, who was writing the 3rd canto of Childe Harold, was the only one among us who put his thoughts upon paper. These, as he brought them successively to us, clothed in all the light and harmony of poetry, seemed to stamp as divine the glories of heaven and earth, whose influences we partook with him. But it proved a wet, ungenial summer, and incessant rain often confined us for days to the house. Some volumes of ghost stories translated from the German into French fell into our hands. There was the history of the inconstant lover who, when he thought to clasp the bride to whom he had pledged his vows, found himself in the arms of the pale ghost of her whom he had deserted. There was the tale of the sinful founder of his race, whose miserable doom it was to bestow the kiss of death on all the younger sons of his fated house, just when they reached the age of promise. His gigantic, shadowy form, clothed like the ghost in Hamlet, in complete armor, but with the beaver up, was seen at midnight, by the moon's fitful beams, to advance slowly along the gloomy avenue. The shape was lost beneath the shadow of the castle walls, but soon a gate swung back, a step was heard, the door of the chamber opened, and he advanced to the couch of the blooming youths, cradled in healthy sleep. Eternal sorrow sat upon his face as he bent down and kissed the forehead of the boys, who from that hour withered like flowers snapped upon the stalk. I have not seen these stories since then, but their incidents are as fresh in my mind as if I had read them yesterday. But we will each write a ghost story, said Lord Byron, and his proposition was acceded to. There were 4 of us. The noble author began a tale, a fragment of which he printed at the end of his poem of Mazeppa. Shelley, more apt to embody ideas and sentiments in the radiance of brilliant imagery and in the music of the most melodious verse that adorns our language than to invent the machinery of a story, commenced one founded on the experiences of his early life. Poor Polidori had some terrible ideas about a skull-headed lady who was so punished for peeping through a keyhole. What to see, I forget. Something very shocking and wrong, of course. But when she was reduced to a worse condition than the renowned Tom of Coventry, he did not know what to do with her, and was obliged to dispatch her to the tomb of the Capulets, the only place for which she was fitted. The illustrious poets also, annoyed by the platitude of prose, speedily relinquished their uncongenial task. I busied myself to think of a story to rival those which had excited us to this task. One which would speak to the mysterious fears of our nature and awaken thrilling horror. One to make the reader dread to look round, to curdle the blood, to quicken the beatings of the heart. If I did not accomplish these things, my ghost story would be unworthy of its name. I thought and pondered vainly. I felt that blank incapability of invention which is the greatest misery of authorship when dull. Nothing replies to our anxious invocations. Have you thought of a story? I was asked each morning, and each morning I was forced to reply with a mortifying negative. Everything must have a beginning, to speak in Sanchian phrase, and that beginning must be linked to something that went before. The Hindus give the world an elephant to support it, but they make the elephant stand upon a tortoise. Invention, it must be humbly admitted, does not consist in creating out of void, but out of chaos. The materials must, in the first place, be afforded. It can give form to dark, shapeless substances, but cannot bring into being the substance itself. In all matters of discovery and invention, even of those that appertain to the imagination, we are continually reminded of the story of Columbus and his egg. Invention consists in the capacity of seizing on the capabilities of a subject and in the power of molding and fashioning ideas suggested to it. Many and long were the conversations between Lord Byron and Shelley to which I was a devout but nearly silent listener. During one of these, various philosophical doctrines were discussed, and among others the nature of the principles of life, and whether there was any probability of its ever being discovered and communicated. They talked of the experiments of Dr. Darwin. I speak not of what the doctor really did or said that he did, but as more to my purpose of what was then spoken of as having been done by him, who preserved a piece of vermicelli in a glass case till by some extraordinary means it began to move with voluntary motion. Not thus, after all, would life be given. Perhaps a corpse would be reanimated. Galvanism had been given token of such things. Perhaps the component parts of a creature might be manufactured, brought together, and endued with vital warmth. Night waned upon this talk, and even the witching hour had gone by before we retired to rest. When I placed my head on my pillow, I did not sleep, nor could I be said to think. My imagination, unbidden, possessed and guided me, gifting the successive images that arose in my mind with a vividness far beyond the usual bounds of reverie. I saw, with shut eyes, but acute mental vision, I saw the pale student of unhallowed arts kneeling beside the thing he had put together. I saw the hideous phantasm of a man stretched out, and then, on the working of some powerful engine, show signs of life and stir with an uneasy half-vital motion. Frightful must it be, for supremely frightful would be the effect of any human endeavor to mock the stupendous mechanism of the creator of the world. His success would terrify the artist. He would rush away from his odious handiwork, horror-stricken. He would hope that, left to itself, the slight spark of life which he had communicated would fade, that this thing, which had received such imperfect animation, would subside into dead matter, and he might sleep in belief that the silence of the grave would quench forever the transient existence of the hideous corpse which he had looked upon as the cradle of life. He sleeps, but he is awakened. He opens his eyes, and behold, the horrid thing stands at his bedside, opening his curtains and looking on him with yellow, watery, but speculative eyes. I opened mine in terror. The idea so possessed my mind that the thrill of fear ran through me, and I wished to exchange the ghastly image of my fancy for the realities around. I see them still, the very dark room, the dark parquet, the closed shutters with the moonlight struggling through, and the sense I had that the glassy lake and white high Alps were beyond. I could not so easily get rid of my hideous phantom. Still it haunted me. I must try to think of something else. I recurred to my ghost story. My tiresome, unlucky ghost story. Oh, if I could only contrive one which would frighten my reader as I myself had been frightened that night. Swiftly as light and as cheering was the idea that broke in upon me. I found it! What terrified me will terrify others, and I need only describe the specter which had haunted my midnight pillow. On the morrow I announced that I had thought of a story. I began that day with the words, "It was on a dreary night in November," making only a transcript of the grim terrors of my waking dream. At first I thought but a few pages of a short tale, but Shelley urged me to develop the idea at greater length. I certainly did not owe the suggestion of one incident, nor scarcely one train of feeling, to my husband, and yet but for his incitement, it would never have taken the form in which it was presented to the world. From this declaration, I must accept the preface. As far as I can recollect, it was entirely written by him. And now, once again, I bid my hideous progeny go forth and prosper. I have an affection for it was the offspring of happy days when death and grief were but words which found no true echo in my heart. Its several pages speak of many a walk, many a drive, and many a conversation when I was not alone, and my companion was one who, in this world, I shall never see more. But this is for myself. My readers have nothing to do with these associations. I will add but one word as to the alterations I have made. They are principally those of style. I have changed no portion of the story, nor introduced any new ideas or circumstance. I have mended the language where it was so bold as to interfere with the interest of the narrative, and these changes occur almost exclusively in the beginning of the first volume. Throughout, they are entirely confined to such parts as are mere adjuncts to the story, leaving the core and substance untouched. All right, time for my personal fun fact about death. When I was about 20 years old, my job was to make sure people didn't die overnight. I worked the graveyard shift at a retirement center. I just had to open the door, make sure they were still breathing. Did I ever find a corpse? Wait for the next episode.